Space Brother Diary Room.
Every single season and learn everything that there is to know about everybody.
Please make your way to the diary
Celebrity, Brandon. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Diary Room, a Big Brother podcast where we're trying to find the best player in Big Brother history. And it's going to take us a long time, but we're on our way. We're not too far off from halfway through round one, but we'll get there when we get there. Of course, I am Matt. I'm here with Aman. Aman, how's it going?
Hello. I'm back.
You're back and you're brat.
I'm back. And I'm brat because my co-host was kind enough to tell me that I had sweat stains showing on my other shirt.
Honesty, right away.
It's a little behind the scenes tea for you, just in case you wanted to know. Because I feel like I've worn this for the past couple of podcasts that I've been on, so I feel like people are gonna be like, "Aman, you okay with that?"
On the timing, but also, who's gonna take issue with a brat hoodie or any brat merch? Unless
shout out to Charlie XCX. We are recording this after this year's latest Grammys, and she won. What did she win? She won something, and good for her.
Maybe not enough.
It was best dance electronic album. Thank you to our. Yeah. That was the voice of our guest, which who is
sorry.
Not.
No, that was actually me. Anyway, let's bring in our guest for real, so we can all talk about Charlie XCX and not Big Brother. Welcome to the Diary Room. One of Amon's other co-hosts from the Drag Race, or We Know Drag Race, over on the We Know reality TV feed on RHAP. It is Beth Dixon. Beth, what's up?
I am so excited to be here. I'm so excited to see the brat hoodie again. I am so excited to see your wonderful faces and talk about Big Brother, which I don't get to do often on these different podcasts. So I'm excited. I'm also excited going back to like a little Drag Race Grammys thing that Doechii, who just exploded for at least for me and so many people on my feed after her stint as a guest judge and having Alter Ego, which is not actually on the Alligators Bites Never Heal album, but regardless, she won Best Rap Album, becoming the third female rap artist to ever win that. Or it's the fourth, third.
The third.
It was Lauryn Hill, Cardi B, and now her.
And Cardi, yep.
So that was fun. I was like, okay, first of all, I am somebody who just kind of enjoys different music, but my God, we'll take when I'm like, oh my God, I know her. She's great. I downloaded her album and now it just won.
That's my friend. She was on my show.
Yeah, she and I are best friends. I'm definitely somebody Doechii's probably surrounding herself with my CC beanie and lined hoodie, basic white girl.
Yeah. Beth, how's it going? Happy to have you here finally after all this time. Aman has been, promoting the podcast over on the Drag Race recaps for a while now. And, of course, you've been on the list and we finally got you here to talk some Big Brother, which, like you said, you don't get to do all the time. I think you have referred to yourself as a bit of a Big Brother casual, but I think you know enough to be here.
So I consider myself a Big Brother advanced casual fan, in the sense that I have watched numerous seasons with the feeds. I've done live feed updates with Taryn and such before. I've experienced that, but I have also never seen every single season. There's actually quite a few seasons that, especially the early ones, that I've never seen. I joined watching Big Brother 16 in 2014. It was the first time I ever watched it, and I went, oh my God, this is so great. I can't wait to watch. And then auditioned for Big Brother for BB 18 and made it a round or two in, but then, or BB 17, I mean, I didn't make it a couple rounds there, but then my childhood hometown friend Steve Moses makes it on that season. And I'm like, okay. So I watched the feeds for the first time. I ran his social media while he was in the house. And then I auditioned the next year, made it 2 rounds in. And it was just a lot of fun. And that was kind of my introduction. I got really into the feeds and such, but I think I'm more of a fan than the casual Facebook people, or the people I know in my life who are like, did you catch the episode last night? And I'm like, oh honey, I've known about that for 6 days. So no, but I'm certainly not an encyclopedia of
me either.
Big Brother. So it's fun to have this moment.
You podcast on Rob is a Podcast, home of the highest quality Big Brother content out there. Yeah, I'll say it.
1,000%.
So you certainly
Besides this
again are above. Well, yeah, all of the above. So there's the backstory there. I will say, would be insane if you and Steve had been on the same season of Big Brother.
Well,
You
there's
would have
no
been
way.
Wild.
Well,
you would have been
what's
another
interesting?
category of they know each other.
We think so. Steven's mom has also made it very far before on the casting. She no longer, but like she almost was on, and she would have been on. I think she was. It was going to be BB19 that she was almost on. It was going to be like because she is. I love you, Kathy Moses, but you are fucking crazy, and you know that. And she is. If you thought that Steve was neurotic, amplify that with much more high energy.
The preceptor to Angela, as it were.
Angela is tame in comparison. Okay. So this is what I mean, right?
And this is the woman who gave birth to like the calm, sweet Steve Moses?
Correct, because she has spent all of her energy channeling it into her baby boy.
Okay.
She's like, you know what I mean? And she was my band teacher in high school. I spent as much time at their place as I spent at my home. I dated his older brother and everything. I know the family super, super well. I have said this to her face before. Kathy, you were either first out or you win. In the same way that Steven. When Steven was announced, I keep calling him Steven. Okay, Steve. When I'm talking about Big Brother, he's Steve. They made him not go on as Steven because they thought it was too close to Ian.
I feel like that's like a Big Brother wiki fact or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like widely reported. That's funny.
Wild. But it's just, if Steven and I had been on the same season, guaranteed we both would have gone home early, because as much as we know each other, I think we would have accidentally tanked each other's games. Like, absolutely. Yeah. I would have spent so much time having that kind of older sister protective energy, but
well, that's interesting that you say that about his mom, because I feel like I remember those stories of when BB, who was it? Oh, it was Michelle, Big Meech.
Yeah.
From BB 18, before she got on the show. She was a big fan of Steve and had like a whole, was it like a Facebook account that was like a fan club for Steve?
And she hated Steve.
And oh wait, no, then who was it then? There was somebody that had
Bronte and Steven saw each other in finals for BB 17. And he was like, oh my God, that is a girl I'm going to team up with. And then
no. It was nothing about that. It was about somebody having a Facebook group in relation to Steve. If it was, I felt like it was Big Meech. Maybe it wasn't a fan club. Maybe it was a hate club.
But I mean, Big Meech was a big fan. It could have been her.
His mom, like, was like, excuse me, like, I'm actually running this. Like, you need to take this down. And they got into it online over who was going to be.
Oh, okay. That might have been why she disliked him then, because she was quite vocal on the feeds of how much she actually didn't like him. I felt like there were times where she'd be like, yeah, man. Anyway, it was interesting because when I would watch Big Brother at their place the next summer with her, she'd be like, see, this is why I'm happy you're not on this season, Beth, because you would have had to put up with this energy. And I was like, if we're going to be real, Big Meech is probably who I would have been in that cast. So I wouldn't have thought, like, that's probably the archetype I would have been, maybe the Bridget or something, but I don't know. So it was just very interesting. But yeah, it's a wild time, because I remember on Steven's account having to like defend him against Evil Dick.
They're going to say against Rob, at least.
And I didn't. Oh no. No.
Oh, okay. No. I found it. I found the quote from Big Meech's interview that she did, I guess, like after the season, or Ask Me Anything on Reddit. She said, "What's something no one might know about you if you didn't tell them?" She said, "I can say something funny. Last year, when the cast release came out, I made Facebook fan pages for a couple of them, and I made one for Steve. It got over 3,000 likes, and Steve Moses' mom messaged me telling me to delete it because she wanted to have the sole fan page. So we got into a bit of a tiff. She messaged me, and it was like, you need to delete this. I'm his mom. I own the fan page, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "I'm just a fan, and it's not my fault I have more likes than you." And I made this beautiful graphic design header on Photoshop.
Okay. Ooh. Can I provide some more additional tea to this?
Please.
I actually know this now. So I had never known that, like, Meech had gone public with this. And I actually didn't know it was Big Meech, but this is funny. So when Steven entered the house, there was a fan account, the official Steve Moses fan account on Twitter, who started pretty, easily being super nice and complimentary and let's root for Steve and everything. And it was fine. But then it started being like, so we're hoping to raise money for XYZ. And Kathy, his mom, immediately was like, I don't like the idea of people using my son's name and saying it official without Steve Moses there, without us who actually know him having any kind of say in this, because that's going to reflect on him. So she started going around and trying to shut down anything that and try to like at least say like, you can help run this with me. This can be your project, but I need to have an involvement if you're going to say this is like an official Steve Moses thing. And so it was just so wild to me, because I just remember thinking like, I don't think anybody cares.
No
that
one gives
deeply.
a damn. It is Big Ass Brother. No one is coming for Steve over a fan page that they can easily with their own eyes understand that this is just
but it was just one of those things where I said something like, oh, are you working with like, because like I remember the fan page like DM'd me on Twitter, because I was like very vocally like, oh my God, it's my first time watching feeds and look at Steve and blah blah blah, and they were like, oh my God, that's so great, like let us know if you have any Steve facts that you want us to post. And I was like, I don't know, like maybe we should get his mom involved in that. And so I probably helped fuel that fire. But that's so funny. That's wild. I actually didn't know that Big Meech was probably a part of that. And I also know the way that she's presenting that is probably very, very true as to how Kathy did it. So I'm actually not like, whatever. But yeah, I remember her saying some things about like not particularly liking Steve, or maybe it was his mom or something like that on the show or on the feeds at one point.
That would track at this point.
So.
Given all this information,
That's funny.
I do feel like this will be me though. If Amon gets on Big Brother, I'll be messaging the fan accounts and being like, actually, I run these accounts. Thank you very much.
Yeah. How dare you try to raise money?
I'm
and I was
gonna
like,
make sure my accounts get more followers than yours. Amon, on the topic, so we know, especially going back to like, I don't know, however many episodes ago, Josh was encouraging yet again your bad behavior of you possibly trying to get on the show. If you ever did get in the house and saw another person, let's just say anybody that you knew in the house, have you ever thought through that, like what you would do rather than just like regular strategy of it's 16 strangers?
Yeah, I mean, I think about it all the time. I've like, because I also think about like, what if someone that's a fan of RHAP, sees me on the show.
You and Teeny are both on Survivor. Sorry, Big Brother 27.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I always just say to myself that I would just go to them immediately and be like, okay, like look, like we're here. I wanna do well. I know you want to do well. I don't see any sense in going after one another. Just because we're both fans of the show doesn't mean that we're going to be experts at the show. And it's actually a huge advantage that we have a connection outside of this house, whereas a lot of other people aren't going to have that. The audience might feel that's unfair, but we're not the audience. So that's kind of like, that's the approach that I always thought I would just go with. It's just like, just logic it out and just hope that the other person is not the type that would think that I am not trustworthy. Because I feel like people might just be like, oh, I gotta get him before he gets me. And I'm like, no, I don't want to enter the house on day one and feel like that. I want to feel like, like anybody else is going in there. So
to be fair, I feel like Survivor is the show where that is harder to do because everyone just wants to get the gamers out immediately kind of thing. Versus Big Brother is like, oh, casting accidentally casted 5 people that know each other. Like, whoops, all connection season. Like, I just feel like it ends up not being a big deal in the beginning part of the season in Big Brother, whereas it ends up being a big deal in the beginning part of like the Survivor. And I think it's just the difference between anybody could go pretty much at any time versus only 2 people being nominated at a time traditionally. But it still is very interesting because I've thought about the same thing where, oh, of course we pretend like we don't know each other immediately. And then we have our moment where we come off to the side and strategize how we want to do this. Because I know I've always thought like if I entered a Big Brother house or Survivor or something like that, which I'm not auditioning, so I don't know why I would. But if they pluck me out of obscurity and they are like, oh yeah, you meet none of our influencer requirements, but we're still just gonna grab you anyway. I always thought that it would be very easy to kind of just say, I think we need to make separate alliances and have ears
Yeah.
on different sides of the house and like check in with each other, but we can't be hanging out together even casually, because everybody just knows that your casual connections
Yeah,
in a place like
exactly.
Big Brother are going to be your alliance connections.
I would
So.
just hope that I would hope that it's what you described, Matt, and that I go in there and I know the person and that person knows me, as opposed to someone knows me, doesn't say anything, and then goes around the house and says, "Yeah, you know that guy. He's."
I mean, look, just in like recent examples, we've seen Izzy tell Suri, I know you. We've seen Teeny tell Asia, I know you, and you know, 2 different shows. But just like it does seem like generally you're going to tell the person and try to have that connection so that there's something there. So
Matt, what would you do?
I'm not going.
You're like, I don't have to conceptualize this.
No, never. So any questions of the sort, just go to Amon.
You and I are so very different types of Leo. It's
Yeah.
If anybody's listening to this, I promise I don't bite. Please don't go after me.
Yeah.
I can say, having played a couple of games with Amon, he is a lot of fun to try to work with, and you should work with him. So that is my.
But look,
Even
you
if he does
also have to consider this
throw you under the
bracket.
bus.
You also have to consider this podcast. He is unpredictable.
But that's, you know what, I think,
but not in the game.
I honestly think if you have somebody who podcasts and this is their whole life about, like, you know, Big Brother and that kind of thing, and you know that, and you go into the house and you know who they are, I'm sorry, you were at the same level as that person. So don't think that you guys should be at odds. If you know somebody is a big fan of the game, then that is somebody that you should keep an eye on and try to strategize with and see what they're like IRL.
And I'm not that great at strategy. I want people.
Oh, sure, you're not.
I'm really not. Like, there are people out there that like really like get really cerebral about this type of stuff, and I just like the surface level stuff half the time. Don't
You're
get
very
me wrong.
social, and like you can get information. That's basically what your strengths are, right?
Exactly. I'm not a game.
But what we mean is Amon
like
has
how
no
I'm
strengths.
building you
He's
up
not a
and
threat,
trying-
and you shouldn't come after him when you're in the house. Is what we're trying to say.
Yes.
Of all of this, or don't go after Beth either. All right, Beth.
When
One
I'm
last
fucked
question
up-
I had for you before we get to the wheel itself for today. So if Big Brother is you're on the casual side, what is like your number one reality show? Is it Drag Race?
Whoo! Okay,
Survivor?
so I've seen every episode of both Drag Race and Survivor. Now, when we say Drag Race, I obviously don't mean the 15,000, spin-off franchises and that kind of thing. And I'm actually have taken quite a seat back on watching all of those, just because I feel like I have now just gotten so overwhelmed with drag that I don't enjoy watching the US seasons when I'm watching everything else as well. I love podcasting about it, so I want to continue to do that. So I would say, in terms of like what has impacted my life on a day-to-day and what I love, what I quote and all those things, Drag Race the whole time. But Survivor has been a part of, like many people, has been a part of my reality TV experience since 2000 or 2001, and 2000. And when I started watching it, I was in 7th grade. And I was a fit athlete as a high schooler. I was a swimmer, I was a really good swimmer. And so I just was like, I had this huge, muscly, thin physique that was like, oh, I could do this. And I loved being outside. I genuinely thought I was going to go on Survivor and win. And then I discovered beer and pizza and not working out in college, and started being like, oh, I don't like bugs. so that quickly changed to being like, I just want to commentate on like the strategy portions of this and know that unless there is a gun to my head, I am not playing Survivor. Sure. So I think that Survivor is like what has influenced so much of like the way I view strategy games, even something like Mafia, party game kind of thing. So I would say that Survivor, when it comes to competition reality shows, or that. I also think, even though I can't tell you many blessed things about it, but in the mid 2000s, my other huge one was Next Top Model. Loved it. And I think that's why I ended up liking Drag Race so much, because it's so clearly modeled after America's Next Top Model and Project Runway and, you know, all of those different shows.
I still
So
can't
your
believe
local-
Tyra Banks has not been on there. Like, what's going on there?
So from your Next Top Model casual here, is
Yeah.
it still airing? Is it still on?
I have no idea.
No, it was weird. Like, they came back with Rita Ora, and then the
Why?
show did kind of well, and then Tyra was like, okay, I'm taking it back. And then she came back and kept the Rita Ora era judges. And then that season did okay-ish on social media. And then she tweeted out something like during that season, like a picture of her and Nigel Barker and the Jays. And they were like, we have a surprise for you. And then nothing ever came. So I don't know.
Okay. So the answer seems to be no.
Yes. Right
All
now,
right,
we haven't
well-
had a season since what, 2021, something like that.
I'll be honest, I don't think I've watched the show since I graduated college. It was something that my friends and I just liked chilling out and watching as we ate like donuts and pizza and shit. That like we're watching these girls who are like clearly being forced into like eating disorders and like having all this other stuff, and we're like, oh my god, she looks so good. And we're like,
All right. Well, it sounds like you might have done it the right way of continuing on with your life, despite maybe the message that you were getting from the show. You know,
when they announced the co-ed season 20, they actually came to a lot of college campuses around the states, and they came to mine, and a lot of men and women went over there. I was like, okay, y'all better step into the light. I was like, yes. I think I was way too short to be on that damn show, but
oh, that's the thing, is like in college, even though I look great and I, you know, carry my weight well and everything, I was like 160 pounds and like the biggest girl on our campus, which is nothing, right?
which is nothing, but to the modeling world, you're plus size.
Oh, to the modeling world, as a size 10, 12, they were like, this is the fattest fatty to ever have walked. And now I can look at them and go, well, guess what? What if we added about 70 more pounds? What about now? Right. So, but I think it's just so funny that like those perceptions, you know, that we grew up with as millennials and such, not only influence just reality TV in the way that we see it now, but also just like the ways in which we're like, you know, the things that you could get away with filming in America's Next Top Model, let alone commenting on, can't do that nowadays. And that's a good thing.
you know what else is a good thing?
The wheel?
The wheel.
Hey.
Needed to find a transition.
I love that.
And this is my fault. I asked Beth about her other favorite reality shows, which brought us on a journey of talking about almost anything but Big Brother. And
apologies.
then that means we do have to get back to the topic at hand here, which is Big Brother. This wheel, I will say, I'm starting to notice something here as we enter getting close to the 40s of our episodes. I think this is 39. The wheel looks smaller when a lot of the players have already been pulled. So traditionally you look at a wheel and you'd see, oh, I can see the names kind of. It's like, what, did Beth watch 3 seasons of Big Brother? It's like, no, there's a lot of seasons here, but a lot of those seasons have already had half or more than half of the cast pulled. So this is just, you know, a sign that we're making progress. So
I can't wait. So the question I have is, so if, and this is something I probably should know as a guest beforehand, and I don't, and I apologize. If we have someone like Devon, who's been on multiple seasons, are we talking about Devon overall or Devon for 17 versus
everything?
Cool. I love that.
Talking about whoever gets pulled as a player across Big Brother history.
Awesome.
So
I'm on it.
With that said, let's find out who's up first. We do have 6 chances here of pulling Steve Moses himself.
Could you imagine Steve Moses and Devon? Let's do it.
Crazy.
Oh my God.
Crazier things have happened. But we're going to start with BB25.
Nicole.
And that's going to be Mimi. Nicole Hayes. It's going to be our first player of the day. Again, from Big Brother 25. Pre-jury by a hair. One of the quieter players on the season. But oh boy, were we waiting and waiting and waiting for that potential to shine through and see what Mimi was going to be able to pull off. And I know players like a Corey were waiting and waiting for Mimi to say, yeah, I'll work with you. But sometimes it just doesn't work out that way.
Yeah.
What do we have on Mimi, Aman?
All right, Mimi. Primarily preferring to lay low, Nicole was a quiet character for her time in the game, save for several rants in the house's storage room. Nominated by Week 9's HOH Cameron, she was targeted for what was assumed to be her playing a floater game appealing to the jury. She would be evicted by a vote of 7-0, having only trusted in Felicia throughout the game.
That vote for Mimi to go when it was her against Felicia, and it was, I believe, the final pre-jury vote, right? It was either Felicia wasn't going to make the jury or Mimi wasn't going to make the jury, and it seemed like Felicia was going, and we were like, oh my god, like a jury house without Felicia, that's not good. But it was also like a lot of people, I think, looking at, or maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but Mimi is such a quiet, like she's gonna pop out and she's gonna win. And then it was like, okay, well, which one makes more sense to have? I think a lot of people preferred having Felicia stay, which is ultimately what ended up happening. And who knows if we ever would have seen that full potential of Mimi pop out, because I feel like we've seen a lot of Mimi since the show, especially on like a Twitter, commenting on things, and you can kind of pick up on the fact that she knows what she's talking about, and I think really could have been a strong endgame player. But because we didn't see a lot in those early couple of weeks, it leaves us with like just an empty data file to really be able to dive in and say for sure that that would be the case. We saw her have some allies. We saw her working with Felicia, Jared to an extent, Suri to an extent. But again, missing some information there, Beth.
I completely agree. I think that what Mimi's biggest issue was that she didn't know how to channel her energy in a house that was just so chaotic of information, with things constantly changing and people like metagaming and not metagaming and going in the opposite direction and everything. And I feel like if she had had a cast that was a little calmer strategically or even socially, she would have probably done incredibly well. I think also the Suri factor of that season can't be like undermined a little bit with how it must have been to be like, okay, now we all came in, but now there's also the survivor legend in there. And there's issues with her and Felicia. Now they're actually working together, but now they hate each other again. And she had so much love for, for Felicia in that house that I felt like she kind of essentially threw her game away for Felicia, I felt like. And I feel that if she had a sense of security in the relationships in the house a little bit more, she would have eaten. She, like you said, she clearly knows what she's talking about. We saw enough of those storage room rants to know that she was thinking strategically. But I genuinely think that she just kind of shut down because she didn't know how to navigate the game. And I mean, I'm still waiting for it because I have I have all the respect and faith in the world that if she ever came back, based off of what she's been able to see about how people have talked about her when she was in the game and how the audience has perceived her, what has worked on social media and what hasn't when she's been talking about strategy, I think she'd be somebody that people would completely disregard at first in the game and then realize, oh, actually she is much better at the floater game this time around, and a little bit more savage, which I always like too.
Also a 10 out of 10 cast photo.
Oh,
Yeah, it's great.
gorge.
We were all calling her. We were all saying hi, Barbie.
Oh man,
drops.
yeah.
Mimi. It was so interesting to see her outside of the game because her personality was something that I felt like we didn't really get a chance to see a lot of in the house.
Yeah.
I felt like, I've seen her, on RHAP a couple of times, and she's so vibrant and so just like, like bubbly, and funny. And she was funny in the house, especially with those rants. But it always felt like she was just a little too. Sometimes it felt like not that she didn't want to be there, but that she was sort of just tired of everybody. I mean, we knew she was tired of everybody.
Very much that, yeah.
And I feel like that sort of stifled her game a lot of the time because, yeah, she has her little thing with the brown sugar babe. She has her thing with Felicia and everything. But outside of that, it didn't really seem like she wanted to venture. Whereas everyone else was talking, she would just stick with whoever she had and to herself and quite literally talk to herself. And it felt like she had such a tunnel vision thing for Corey and wanting Corey out, when Corey wanted to work with her, which is both of their faults.
Yep.
Like, Corey, you could have said something just as much as Mimi could have said something, but unfortunately, Mimi, I think what Corey was sensing was correct in that Mimi didn't want to work with him. Mimi wanted him gone. And she would say that to her alliance members all of the time. So when the time comes for her to be on the block, I mean, you're already having to fight against the simple fact that Felicia probably isn't going to win a lot of competitions, so you might as well keep her around anyway. But you were already very vocal to a lot of people about wanting Corey out. So when there is the potential chance for a flip from Corey and America during that vote, it's kind of dead in the water at that point because there was nothing really for them to
want to save.
Yeah. So it's just I feel like, yes, she knew really well what her positioning in the game was. My favorite rant of hers was when she was back there, she was like, "You're expendable right now. No one is including you in anything. You're out of the loop. You need to get it together." I was like, yes. Now what are you gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, "You need to get it together. I'm gonna go sit outside with Felicia for a little bit." And you're like, "What? What are you doing?
Yeah,
Get back
that's
in there."
literally, where you can point to right away and say that's a big part of the problem. Just to, have a great ally in Felicia and have this person that's going to be so loyal to you, who was so loyal to her, is great. But, if you're entering the Big Brother house and that's your closest ally, and I should say that's like your only solid ally, it's not enough. And she had enough people that she felt good enough with. And like Amon's talking about, the Corey situation where enough people, I guess she's looking at as like, well, this is the enemy. If I can get them out, I'm succeeding in the game because this is who I don't want to work with. But obviously a really good Big Brother player is going to look around at all of their options, consider all their options, bring Corey in and make him feel like you at least want to work with him, even if you don't actually in the long term. And of course, it's easy for us to say now, knowing the monster that Matt and Jag were going to be together. But with even just having a glimpse of that in the house, you would have hoped that anybody trying to take them down would have, those outsiders would have formed together, which probably looks like a Corey, America, Blue, Mimi, a group that just would never have come together. We saw that group in the house. It was just, they were all spread out, but they probably needed each other way more than they ever would have realized in the moment. Definitely in agreement with a lot of Amon's points. But again, the potential.
She was interesting too, because I think when you have Felicia, who is so close well, obviously tumultuously, but was close with Sari and also with Izzy, but then also at times was kind of didn't know how to feel in that. Instead of Mimi being the type of person to go, let me see what my relationship could be like with them and see if I can strengthen something on behalf of our duo with them, it's just she immediately was shut down, right? Ideas from the Izzy Sari kind of camp. And then the same thing would happen with, like you said, with the tunnel vision on Corey, which meant that she wasn't going to trust America. And then, she had ups and downs with Jared and Blue. And so then you're left with Cameron, Matt, Jack, that was never going to be anybody that she aligned with. So when I said I don't think that she knew her path forward, that's what I mean is I genuinely don't think that there was anybody in that house who was going to have agency that she was aligned with. And instead of saying, okay, I got to make some relationships with people or alliances with people that I maybe don't personally like or want to work with, but it's going to advance my game. I respect the fact that she was so real that she was like, I'm not going to just do this. I'm not just going to go out of my way. Even though I know I should do this, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
There's a part of that energy I appreciate, but I would have appreciated more if we'd seen her just go in there and just mess stuff up in the best of ways. Because I think she had the potential for that in an incredible sense.
Agreed. Well, the only way to find out how we truly feel about Mimi and her game is to find her an opponent, match her up against another Big Brother player in the history of the show, and see who's better.
Who will it be?
Looks like we're going to go BB25 versus BB26.
Oh!
And have a showdown of Mimi versus Big Brother 26, Mackenzie.
I'm not gonna lie, I was really hoping it was gonna land on Ryan
Yeah,
Lochte,
her real neighbors are Ryan Lochte and Shelly Poole.
which I also love Shelly, but
Mimi
ooh.
really needed that wheel to be one bit slower and land on Ryan Lochte. But she could have a fighting chance. Maybe. Amon, what do we have in our notes from the BB Wiki about Mackenzie Manbeck?
Yes.
Yep.
Mackenzie, initially an outsider from many major alliances within the house, Mackenzie suffered a major. Damn.
There's the cough. We had a bet before the podcast if Amon still had his cough or not.
I was so close. Mackenzie suffered a major blow when her closest ally, Matt, was evicted in the first week. As such, she relied on using her America's veto and winning competitions. Later, she formed an alliance with Chelsea and Cam, which proved to be essential in her survival until finale night. Having absolute loyalty with Chelsea, Mackenzie evicted Cam when she won the final HOH, but the entire jury respected Chelsea's well-rounded gameplay and her persuasive use of Mackenzie's HOH reigns for her own benefit, leading to Mackenzie's finish as the runner-up. Her decision to evict Cam was deemed a huge strategic blunder by the viewers and the jury.
What a comp beast. Look at this record here. 3 HOHs, 5 vetoes. It is criminal that her cast photo is in a red top and not the iconic blue workout outfit that she is very much known for at this point. This is such an interesting pick, an interesting player. We've already had Mackenzie. We've already had Chelsea come up. We've had a lot of BB26 come up. But I feel like for Mackenzie, I don't know if it's going to be in this round that we really dive into this as much if she makes it through here. But the ability that she has to win comps and get in good with the allies that she got in good with that got her all the way to the end game versus the way that she just played Chelsea's game is going to be hard to grapple with. Again, I don't know if that's in this matchup that she's going to have that hard of a time, but in the future, I could see it coming up. Beth, what do you think about Mackenzie?
So I think that. So I need to preface with a couple things. One, BB26 is a very casual season of viewing for me. And I think that's why it ended up being so good for everybody else is because I said, you know what, maybe I don't watch it as closely as I have in the past. So you're all welcome. Because clearly when I was really involved, that's when BB started to go downhill a little bit. That said, obviously, I know quite a few podcasts to listen to and people to follow and be up to date with everything that's going on too. And from what I always understood about Mackenzie was that she was always going to be a tool for somebody else's game. And in this case, Chelsea, she was such a physical competition kind of threat in the sense that you knew that you would always have to create strategy that accounted for whether or not she was going to be winning that competition. That is something that as an ally, great to have on your side. And when you don't have that on your side, it's an easy shield for other people. I don't know if it's ever a good thing to be like, I'm the shield, and I think the nice thing from what I understand about her is that nobody really found her as a threat, to be quite frank, strategically and such. So her shieldness actually kind of diminishes a little bit. So what I always gathered from my understanding of how Mackenzie was really operating in the game is both with that duality that you were saying, but also this idea where people were like, but Mackenzie, we'll worry about her later. And I think that is somewhat of a strength of hers, although I don't know how much of that is intentional. And I think that those kind of, when you have people confused as to whether or not what to do with you, that is sometimes a strategy within itself to play it up with your personality and that kind of thing. I just am not as aware if in confessionals and such, it seemed like she was as aware of this or not, because that's a huge difference between I am openly playing up, in the way we talked about Steve a lot. Steve played up his, I'm just a young little guy who loves his mom and I'm a nerd and I'm, whatever. He played that up so much because he knew that was going to be the thing that people put him in the box for. So did she put herself in that box and say, I'm going to play up that I don't really, maybe I'm not as strategic, but I'll go along with a vote and I'll do what I need to do? Or was that just who she is and she wasn't as aware of that,
Yeah, I'm inclined to say I think she wasn't aware. I think she was very, and maybe take into account her age. I think she was 22, maybe on the season. Very impressionable.
Sounds
Like
about right.
she evicted Leah. Like she evicted Leah. She evicted Cam. Just every turn, making again Chelsea's moves. It's hard to reconcile with. Plus, Amon, there was the week that she goes home if not for the AI arena, which like you could say anybody almost goes home if not for a veto at certain times, but if
Hmm.
the AI arena didn't exist, Mackenzie's pre-jury.
Mhm.
Yeah. MJ, I mean, I think it was hard because in the beginning of the game, she didn't really have a lot of people that she related to. I mean, she had Matt, and that was kind of it. And even Matt is a handful. I cannot believe that they're dating. That just don't.
It's
Isn't
like
it
a new
bad
photo
that I
shoot
know
every week.
more about her outside of the house now? It's like with Matt, and I was like, why?
But I think when I think about Mackenzie's game, I just think sort of just like loyal soldier to the end. Um, I think that she was sort of easily, as you said, easily influenced by other people, mainly Chelsea. Um, and I think that she was so, I feel like we talked about it all season long, that she was so on the outs from the beginning that as soon as she was able to find a home, that's when, things started to change for her. Even though within the home that she did find, she was kind of unaware of the fact that people really weren't taking to her the way that she was taking to them. Because even when she was sort of getting in good with Chelsea and getting in good with Brooklyn as well, the two of them were closer, and MJ would come to Chelsea with all this information about what she heard and what's going on in the house. But Chelsea wouldn't share anything back because Chelsea has the Pentagon and Chelsea has all these other alliances that Mackenzie's not in. And it felt like a very one-sided relationship. It wasn't until Brooklyn left that things started to get a little bit more in Chelsea's or in Mackenzie's favor, which I think obviously is good for Chelsea, but not necessarily the greatest for Mackenzie. And Mackenzie, during that vote flip for Cedric, she still voted wrong. It's just like her game was just a lot of just like trying to find a home. And I don't think that that's really a good strategy. I think that that's more so just like, because to me that doesn't read as someone that is trying to play the game. It kind of reads as someone who is just, I don't know how to say this without sounding mean.
Do it.
Follower?
Yeah, like it didn't really feel like she
No, I
was
mean,
there for herself.
but
Like,
that's exactly it. Like you were talking about after Brooklyn leaves, Chelsea pulls her in. Chelsea pulls her in. Chelsea discovers this beautiful key piece in the game that is like a complete free agent, can absolutely pull this person in and very quickly realizes, which is going to be, perfect for Chelsea's game going all the way to the end, that this person is undyingly loyal to her all the way through to the end game, where she evicts Cam and brings Chelsea to the end because they had such a good bond. Of course, a lot of that bond was based in their faith and whatnot. So, something like that, bringing them together. So the fact that they were able to find things like that, maybe you'll give the credit to Chelsea a little bit there. I think it was both real and also her recognizing this will keep MJ loyal to me as tightly as I need her to be. But it really was a lot of the work that Chelsea put in. Again, when Mackenzie and Leah were like the two outsiders in that first week after Matt goes. And in the weeks after that, they certainly were not allies. They were like loosely connected in the game because they were both such like every single week that went by, it was like Mackenzie and Leah still here. Mackenzie and Leah still just here, still just kind of here. Nobody's going after them, but they're also not really working together. They had their check-ins and like, hey girl, we're still good, right? Yeah. And then like maybe exchanged like one bit of information and that was it. But you still, I feel like, had reason to believe around the time where Mackenzie is going to evict Leah that it is not a good move for her. It is Chelsea's move. And again, it's just like, the tough situation with a player like this and the decision we're going to make here is that she made it all the way to the end. She had good allies and she won so many comps. She had a lot of good things happen to her in the game, a lot of good relationships, you could probably say. But again, just because of Chelsea is really the story.
It's kind of like the vibe I get from what that I got when I was following along with the season, and from what listening to the two of you, it's kind of like if Liz sat next to Vanessa in the
Yeah.
final two, you know, in the sense of like, oh yeah, she won competitions and such, but her moves were always somebody else's moves. She didn't really maybe know what was going on in the house, those kind of things. And it almost feels like this wheel off between Mimi and her is going to be very interesting, because it's like somebody who knew what was going on in the game, but just like seemingly didn't know what or how to navigate it, and just kind of was like came across as being apathetic in a sense, in a game sense, versus the person who maybe was actually clueless but just managed to make it through by following what you're supposed to do. Oh, I won a competition. Now what? You know, so I feel like it's like very opposite issues that they had with their games in a way.
I also don't want us to get through this vote without mentioning Mackenzie's best moment of the season, and that was her vote to evict Joseph. When she just sat there, pointed like sideways up at the camera, like with this emotional look on her face, because she was deciding at the last moment to keep Chemo instead. And she took the world's longest pause that would be allowed in a voting confessional. And then she evicted Joseph.
I love that.
I think I misspoke earlier. I'm looking it up now. I think she did vote in the majority during the Cedric flip. But why I remember it as her being in the minority is because she still went back to Cam, Brooklyn, and Chelsea and was in with them, even though you just alienated them. And then everyone else is looking at her like, girl, are you dumb? They don't even like you like that. So that's why I was like, she voted wrong, because she ended up, her actions or as if she voted wrong, but she really voted right. But then she like did all of the work that you did to get in the majority. Now it was
well, because who pulled her into that? I guess it must have been Leah that got, no, wait, was Leah was on board with the Cedric flip, right? Because T-Core and Chemo got like all of them.
Yes. It was T-Core, Chemo, Rabina, and MJ. Because how many votes were there? Oh yeah, and Tucker. Because it was 8. Because I think it was 8. It was like, I can't remember all the votes, but
the only votes for Rubina to be evicted against Cedric there were Chelsea, Cam, and Brooklyn. Everybody else voted Cedric to go, or did not have a vote.
Yes. And she decided to, after the vote and everything, she went all in with Cam, Chelsea, and Brooklyn, even though these people in the game. I mean, she saved herself from with the AI concept.
She almost went home herself.
But you know, yeah, that's MJ for you. What can you say?
She wouldn't have gone home that week, though. Actually, it's the week versus Angela and Tucker that she was gonna be the one to go, because they were thinking, well, if Tucker wins wins the AI arena, it's gonna be Angela versus Mackenzie, and then I think that's the week, right, that they were gonna evict her for certain. All right, but let's do this vote as we are deep into the podcast and only in the first matchup. Beth, let's start with you. Where are you at? Mackenzie, MJ versus Mimi. M versus M.
So we have to go with what we've seen and not what we think could happen in another game. And that's the way I'm doing this, because I think that there is much more potential in a player like Mimi than there is in a player like Mackenzie for a second round. I feel like what we saw with Mackenzie is the best that Mackenzie is going to give us, right? So, but based off of the games that they played, you can argue that there wasn't much agency in Mackenzie's game, but facts are facts. She was able to navigate some kind of, staying alive through winning different competitions by having those loose connections and being able to shore things up with a player who's doing really well in the competition or in the game and has agency and information. And Mimi kind of refused to do that, which is, you have to be agile. And so I am going to actually go with Mackenzie on this. As much as I love Mimi, I just think that we saw a little bit more gameplay and having your head in the game, even if that head was very empty with information some of the time.
Aman?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mackenzie's definitely the stronger player here. I think that she would do well for a returning season. Obviously, she's great at the comps. I just think that she has to be able to be more willing to relate to people that aren't typically the people that she hangs out with. And I think that she definitely has the capacity to do that. But I remember her feeling so unlike everyone else in the house in the beginning, and that could have been by design. A lot of people were older this season. The only one that was like sort of like around her age were T-Core and Cedric, and Matt. So you know, it's skewed older, so that definitely does hurt. It's like, well, now you know how the older people usually be feeling.
Hello.
So, and I do think that she, you know, I remember her sort of like bonding with Chelsea over their shared faith, and I think Brooklyn as well. They would like read their Bibles together and everything. So the capacity to find connection was there, and she went with that. So yeah, I think in terms of Mimi, who definitely was, as you said, Beth, just not as flexible. I think, yeah, I got to give it to her. I mean, and she's the damn runner-up, so.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Again, I think that I was kind of expecting Mackenzie to go through here, and so I do think that in the next matchup she gets, I mean, look, she could get another player that's not got the best
Victoria.
resume. I'm on to make a case, but
I will.
I think she's already
should.
gone.
Yeah,
But I do think that in this matchup, Mackenzie's better. Mimi, if this is the last we talk about her, well, it won't be. We'll talk about her when she comes up on our losers bracket over on Patreon, which she's not going to do well in. And doing well in a losers bracket means that you're a bad player. So she'll be fine when it comes to that kind of competition. But yeah, if she ever did play again, we were theorizing, I could see absolutely a case being made that I think she would do well. And I think a case could be made for her to be obviously a better player than Mackenzie or just a lot of other people, but that's neither here nor there. All right. Well, one matchup down. Let's get back to the wheel to get into the second matchup. Right now, we started with some BB25 and 26. Maybe we'll bounce outside of that little recency circle. Who's to say?
I'm excited.
Up next, might be going to BB Can here.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, BB 9. Why not?
Yeah,
Love that.
9.
The wheel said, "Oh, you guys are running late into the podcast and you haven't gotten a third name yet. Let's talk about first boot, second boot, second boot,
First, second boot,
easy.
second boot,
second boot, and that would
Julie was
be
the first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Julie was the first. Yeah, this is BB Can 9, Josh Farnworth.
Yes. All right. Josh was a clear outsider. On day 3, he had a meltdown in fear of an all guys alliance. He was almost voted out until LaToya decided to flip the vote to evict Julie. In week 2, he was nominated by Austin. Growing tired of his lies, Jedson called a house meeting to expose Josh. This actually benefited him as LaToya considered evicting Rohan instead. After campaigning to them, the Sunsetters tried to convince others to flip the vote and save Josh. However, they failed to get enough votes, and Josh was voted out in unanimous 10-0 vote, placing 13th.
One of like the farthest outsiders of the house, farthest outside an outsider has been in early Big Brother. He could not find himself a friend to save his life. He thought it was Julie. Julie threw him under the bus. He was in such a bad spot in this season. It's hard to undersell or understate that. Biggest moment he has is when he is getting evicted, and there was like a whole song that group had created, and so they were like singing it, his verse of it on the way out when he's like, blew up the house, don't hate me. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
I remember that now.
Remember that now, yeah.
So that is where we left Josh. I really had a lot of hope for him going into the season. I think he just like had this energy about him that was like, he knew I thought he knew the game well, and I thought he was just going to kind of lay low, have a good social game, and no one was going to look at him. And then all of a sudden it's week 1. Everyone is looking at him and wanting him out rather badly. So Beth, anything on Josh?
You know what was interesting to me about Josh, and we talked a lot about this on My Weekly Meltdown when we were covering BB Can 9, was that this was a season of a lot of LGBTQI plus characters, but people on the show. And
everybody was gay.
Everyone was gay or trans, and it was great. But the thing
Until
about
they
it
all
that
got
was
voted out.
then they got voted out back to back to back in the very beginning. Anyway, but it was just very interesting to me because one of the things that my co-host Tyler Lyons really liked about Josh in the preseason was he was like, I really like that this is not an archetype of gay man that we traditionally see on reality TV shows. He's a little bit quieter to himself. He's not maybe as flamboyant and that kind of thing. And Tyler was like, I really identify with him. And then he had these like really horrible first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
and I felt really bad. But it did kind of just feel like it just kind of felt like there was nothing he could do. I think I don't know, like when I think about back on his, like, I don't know what he could have done better. I just think that the cast was just kind of like, and we're done with you. And we're good. Like
They were
he just
so
didn't
done with him.
click.
They were like, they said, they identified him as a target. I won't even say a threat. They identified him as a target. And the whole, I think there's a boys alliance. I mean, look, it was week 1. The wrong thing that he said came out of his mouth. It got spread around the house, and it was like, that's enough in week 1 or 2 of Big Brother anything to send you out the door.
But I think that's so funny because I think we all, as people who either enjoy watching the show or see themselves at some point being on the show, we have to assume there's literally always a boys alliance. So don't go around saying it, because just assume that's probably going to be the case. And if you assume that there's a women's alliance, just know that all of us are going to hate you because they're going to dissolve themselves in some capacity. They don't need help. Don't start politicizing that all over the house or whatever. So I feel like, like going around and being like, I think there might be a guys alliance. It's like, okay, but if I'm one of those people who's not in that alliance and I'm one of the women, for example, that is something that's really helpful. And I would want to work with him. Why would I want to get him out? And I'll tell you why. It's because the patriarchy was strong happening there. But those first couple weeks were really interesting in BBK 9. I really thought Julie would go so far, and then boy, did that just not work out. For the 2 people I had recruited for my team for our draft, I had Julie and Tyshawn. So I had the first out and the
there you go.
So split the difference. But I just remember feeling like, well, they just made up their minds and there's nothing that can change that. And so I just felt like Josh was really stuck in a place where he couldn't really do anything.
Yeah. Amon, anything we haven't said yet?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot. I mean, we didn't really get to see everything that he did during week 1 just because of the way that fees are set up over there. But week 2 was kind of a mess. Him trying to tell Jed that the whole house is coming after him, and I think he goes and actually who does he snitch on? Or I forget who it was, but he said that he tried to expose. No, I don't think it was, or maybe it was Rohan.
I think he had specifically been talking about Rohan.
It was Austin. He was talking about Rohan, but he went and told Jed that Austin said that Jed was going to run the game and be like a pretty boys 2.0 thing again. And then they had the house meeting, and Austin's like, I never said that shit. And then everyone is just going to believe sweet Austin, and they were already conditioned to believe that Josh was an agent of chaos because of week 1. So it just made his game look even more like shit. The one thing, and I was on the morning update after this, so I remember it clearly, was that he did a pitch. I think it was the day of eviction or the day before. He did a pitch to LaToya and Tina about how it really should try to get Rohan out. Him and Kyle have this thing going on, and LaToya was so paranoid about Rohan and Kyle coming for her at some point that she was like, you know what, we might need to keep him. We might need to, because that puts the shield in front of us. We can protect the Sunsetters, and we can get Josh up out of here. So there was that one moment where Josh almost flipped that shit for himself.
And
outside of that,
boy, I bet LaToya wished that she had gone with that.
Yes. Yes.
She learned very quickly.
Yeah. Again, it's a lot of what he, the one thing he said of, I think there's a boys alliance that got into all the wrong people's ears in order for this to completely snowball onto him, Austin being the HOH to take him out. It really would have taken a strong player to come back from something like that. And we've seen it before. We've seen players dig themselves into holes and come out of it. So it's just like there's that specific time in the game that if you get caught in that trap, you need to have that fight and you need to have that social game to work your way out of it. It just wasn't there for Josh, unfortunately. So
Yep, unfortunately.
it's probably going to be a tough battle for him, depending on who he pulls.
Julie.
Yeah. I think our friend Julie Vu is already also
already
out of the bracket, so
she's already gone.
there's a good chance this wheel could give them the same fate. Oh God,
Oh!
is it going
yes, 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 yes.
to be? No, that's
Epic.
evil. That's evil.
This wheel said that. How about?
Damn.
For those listening at home, the name that just got pulled is from Big Brother Canada 9, Rohan.
Damn. All right, well,
I don't have
Rohan.
the stats right now, but I just want to say we definitely haven't had that many matchups of like the same season versus the same season. I can think of Lisa versus Joseph, I think it was, from BB26 when we first put them on the wheel, but that might be the only one. I'll fact check at some point. That's crazy.
Well, it seems pretty apropos with what we just said about Josh to have this moment.
Well, I'm on Rohan.
Rohan, after the rival,
Sunsetters?
Oh, got it. Okay. My brain could not figure it out. After the rival, the Sunsetters, it should just be Sunsetters. After the rival Sunsetters Alliance attempted to flip the vote on him when he was nominated on week 2, Rohan found him being a frequent house target and had to rely on winning comps to save himself. Losing his allies Kyle and Austin coming into jury, Rohan was placed at the bottom of the house's social structure and eventually ran out of luck in week 6. On the block with his ally Brayden, this led to the entire house evicting Rohan unanimously by a vote of 5-0.
Yeah, this so there's a lot, not a lot. I should say there's certainly more to talk about when it comes to Rohan rather than Josh, but this is again insane from the wheel. Rohan just straight up lost his allies. It was one of those cases where he was amongst a group of people that were not in the Sunsetters, and the Sunsetters of course lost like a member or two along the way as well, but the core of that group stayed together all the way to the end, and Ty goes on to win. Rohan was like truly like the last survivor amongst that group. He lost Kyle, Austin. He tried to pick up Brayden as an ally, but you mentioned, right, he was a double eviction boot, so it was just when you're in that double eviction and you just need to make those quick decisions. Rohan is like the exact type of player that gets just taken right out of the game, because who's putting their neck on the who's putting their neck on the line to save him. It just wasn't happening for him at that point. But other than that, it's fine.
I feel like Rohan for me was always just such a question mark of like in that season in the very beginning as well. Like I just remember feeling like Josh is trying to put a target on you. There's clearly an alliance that you're not a part of that's forming. Your allies are a little messy. And I kind of wish that we had seen a little bit more social strategic gameplay from him to build other relationships in the house, because he just didn't do that. And then he just has to rely on these competitions when all the other alliances are kind of like really set, and it's just his people that are getting picked off. And I know that Josh is never not going to be somebody he would have aligned with given how he was, but there is a part of me that's kind of like, okay, but low key with the wheel laughing here, like, did Josh kind of help set up the long term like elimination of
Yeah, it was
Rohan?
tough.
Like, can we entertain that as a potential theory here? Like, if you think about how everything came to be after Josh leaves, it's literally just a complete decimation of Rohan's relationships in game from there on out.
Mhm. Look, we
Yeah.
could make justice happen here. Justice for Josh.
Yeah, he's one of those unfortunate players that sort of has their back against the wall from jump, and there's nothing that you can really do to stop it. There's like a few things where you can try to hope to wiggle in, try to get the most out of the cracks that are forming amongst the dominant alliance, but he was deemed as such a threat, and he fought so hard alongside his number one ally Kyle that it just felt like, I think that a lot of other people were just like, it can't happen. It just can't happen. Now that we've targeted you so much openly, there is no reason for you to ever trust us, and therefore there's no reason for us to trust you. And so when the time came and he stopped winning them damn vetoes, take him out. And that sucks.
Yeah, that first veto, it was him versus Kyle. He comes off the block and Austin goes up. Kyle goes home. He loses his bestie there. It's the next week when he has that veto that I remember being like, dude, what's happening here? Because it was Braden and Austin on the block on Victoria's HOH. Of course, if you remember BB Can 9, you remember Victoria was working with Braden and Austin, but it was the invisible HOH week. So it's not even like Rohan knew that Victoria was HOH. Victoria put Braden and Austin up, which again was confusing to us because you were working with them, Victoria, but whatever. But also she's not outed as the HOH, even though eventually people really did catch on to the fact that it was her. And then Rohan wins the veto, and Rohan wins the veto, and these two people both could be allies for him. They should be allies for him, Austin especially, and Braden he's forming a connection with, and he considers using the veto, but he doesn't do it. And I don't know that I'll ever be able to understand why.
He was too busy massaging Ty in bed, just couldn't have the time for anybody else other than Ty.
Braden was, not Rohan.
Oh, I thought you meant Rohan, and I was like,
oh, I thought you were talking about. Okay, I misheard whatever you just said.
He did mention Braden.
I was like, if Rohan was massaging Ty in bed, I missed it, but I'd like to go back.
I was just gonna say I missed that, and I will require clips.
Yeah.
For research purposes.
Like, just with the snowballing of his game, just it went downhill fast.
Yeah.
Having that one opportunity to have saved Braden or Austin would have been the moment that he tries to take some agency back in his game. And then, what is it? 2 rounds later, he wins another veto. And then the round after is that double H eviction and he's gone. So look, he's got a good matchup here. But round 2, Rohan, I don't know.
I generally just feel like similar to Josh, unfortunately, in this situation, like you guys are saying, it's the oddballs were just, they lived up to their name in the sense that they were working together, but they weren't at all. And when you can't have that level of disconnect when the other side of the house is so solid. Mm-hmm. And I felt like he just kind of let that happen. He was like, I'll win. And then, I'll just, try to win my way to the end rather than try to like really think strategically about how those wins could be used in a strategic sense. So there's not much more he could have done competition in such ways, but I felt like there was a lot of room for improvement of how he could have played socially.
Yeah. Agreed. But with that all said, again, he might have a good matchup for himself here. So let's get this started and over with. Rohan is going to get my vote up against Josh. I'm sorry, Josh. Beth?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Rohan as well. I think in this situation, you have to go with the person who proved themselves to be able to stay a little longer.
Want some comps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Had some chops, but not all of them. Aman?
I will also be going Rohan.
Okay. Well, that was some violence from the wheel on specifically Josh. I don't know what Josh did to deserve that. But again,
that is just his theme, though. He didn't do anything to deserve getting. It's like we're continuing to be.
Yeah. 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 All right. Well, one more matchup to go. Maybe
which 2 other people from BB Can 9.
Right. I was gonna say maybe it's just all BB Can 9 for the back half of this podcast. Actually,
Oh
Oh,
man,
Oh.
I was so
see, I
sad.
just feel bad for Beth because
Oh,
for
that's
anybody
so
listening at
funny.
home, it almost landed on Davon Rogers,
That would have been
and
so
I know
iconic.
I'll be here for the episode that Davon gets pulled. But I do feel bad for Beth.
I'm going to be honest. I don't want to talk about Davon. I want to listen to people talk
That's
about
fair.
Davon because you guys already have gone long with me talking about people I don't feel passionately about. So let's be honest. I'll
Yeah.
be
I don't
listening.
think we've said who we've pulled yet, though.
Oh,
It
yes,
is
sir.
from Big Brother Celebrity Season 1, Keisha Knight Pulliam.
Where the hell is the BB can or the BB celebrity thing in this list? I'm
There's
like,
somewhere in there.
okay.
Keisha Knight Pulliam, unfortunately, her breast milk did deplete,
Did
and
deplete, yes.
as did her chances of winning Big Brother. But she was fine with that when the time came. So let's talk about
What a
a
sentence.
celebrity Big Brother player, Keisha. Amon, did you get the notes?
Yes. Keisha managed to steal the first HOH of the season from Shannon during the gift bag twist and nominated James and Chuck for eviction, with the intent of evicting James. However, on eviction night, she and Omarosa were blindsided by their allies who sent Chuck home. Despite the fact that the house had plans to backdoor Shannon, Keisha begged to be sent home due to personal reasons and was evicted in a unanimous vote. Becoming the second house guest evicted, she placed 10th.
So, yes. A house guest who is always going to be known for the final thing in her game, or I should even just say like one thing. You know, a lot of players have that one moment, and that's what you remember from them. And so that is her moment right before she is evicted because she asks to be evicted, and the reason that she gives as to why she's going to be asking to be evicted. But her game up until that point, what do we have? We did see her in the Majority Alliance early on. She gets that gift bag power that you were talking about, and she makes the exact same nominations that I think Shannon was going to make had she continued her HOH, because I think they were working together. They were in that same alliance.
They were.
And then when all said and done with that first vote, she and Omarosa are on the wrong side of it. They're on the outs. It's also, what
And
is the
so is
man's
Meta.
name?
Meta's on the
Meta.
outside.
Meta.
Everybody.
Meta, who's also on the outs, even though he didn't know what he was doing when it
I
came
voted
And
time
then
to
Chuck
vote.
he
State.
also chose to be on the outs.
So yeah, another rather incomplete game, seeming to be the theme of some of these picks today. But
You know
Keisha,
what's sad is that
not
if
that Keisha.
Keisha was the person that would have gone up against Josh, I think Keisha might have been the one person I could have considered maybe voting Josh over.
And I
Just
love a
because I
matchup
feel
like
like
that.
if you're gonna quit the game, like I'm automatically just gonna go wah wah on even if you had power the first week, and even if you were in a majority alliance, but then got blindsided. So I don't know how do you get blindsided the first week? You know, it's just like,
Easily.
or yeah, but I mean, like,
Yeah, it's just it's
it's
a tough spot. Yeah.
it's a tough spot, and it's just like, ugh, okay, I I don't know if I have much else to add about her. I mean, that's what's so sad.
Omarosa's game was falling apart before her eyes in
Yeah,
this
it was
season.
a
It was
mess.
the vote that didn't go her way the first week. Keisha walks out the next week. Meta doesn't want to be there and eventually leaves 2 rounds later. She's
Yep.
like, I'm trying to win this game. And she's like working well enough with some of the other people, but like they knew they couldn't trust her. Ross was never going to let her go far if he could do anything to stop it. And anybody that would have been on Omarosa's side just couldn't make it. I just want to know what the contract negotiations were like when Keisha was getting ready to go on, of like, so, because she was pumping and she was
Mm.
dealing with some stuff and whatever. And then she's like, oh, but I'll go and we'll do the best we can. And of course, we just watch the unfortunate way it shakes out. It doesn't end well for Big Brother for her.
You know, far be it from me to talk too much trash about a breastfeeding mama. And it's hard out here for breastfeeding mamas because everybody has something to say about breastfeeding mamas.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, you should have kept your ass at home.
Yes.
I was so upset. I was so upset, but I was mad, but I was also, the comedy of it was just enough for me to be like, you know what? All right. Because that
You can't help
iconic
be
quote,
tickled.
like, my breast milk has been beginning to deplete. So I just ask that you do me this favor. Like, oh. And she was pissing everybody else off because they wanted to get rid of Shannon. They wanted to get rid of Shannon, but
It was
because you
amazing.
wanted to keep your money.
No, it was Omarosa, right? Did they want to backdoor Shannon that week, or
They
was
wanted
it
to backdoor Shannon, I thought, the
Yeah.
first week.
Oh, wait.
because she's on the block next to Omarosa?
But didn't Brandy want what? There was somebody that.
Maybe it was that because Marissa wins the veto on Ross's HOH, but maybe they
Oh,
didn't
no,
use
you're
the
right.
veto.
You're right. Despite the fact that the House had plans to backdoor Shannon, Keisha begged to be sent home due to personal reasons.
So then I guess Marissa won the veto and just said, I'm not using it because Keisha's begging to go home. So let's not piss off Shannon.
I think that's how it happened.
Okay.
And everyone, and she was getting upset with Brandy because Brandy was like, we all agreed to this plan, but now you want to quit and it's screwing everything up. We're not going to get another shot to do this.
So it's not just Omarosa's game that got screwed up there. It was a lot of people's. Shannon, not so much. Shannon got to stay another round.
She did. She did.
I'll be honest. I was one of those people who was like all about, whenever I watched, the couple seasons of Celebrity Big Brother, I wanted the people who were there to game to stay. And I couldn't care less who the other people were if you weren't like trying to integrate yourself in the game. So the Omarosa Alliance in general, I was like, get the hell out of there, guys, because you guys are not serious. Like, what is this? Even though I would have hated being in the house with Shannon, I loved her for television because like she was just like heads and shoulders above everybody when it came to like strategy in those first couple of weeks and like her knowledge of the game and all that stuff, and it was just so annoying to everybody else, and I think that's why I liked it so much. But yeah, Keisha,
she's Rudy Huxtable. It makes me so sad. I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, Rudy Huxtable's playing Big Brother. And then
who would have expected two iconic Keishas on Big Brother? One for one reason, one for another. But
I know
having a line like that, again, maybe we weren't going to remember a ton about her game, but just like do you think she laughs about it too? Or is she like, no, that was like traumatizing?
I mean, do you think her child is like, my mom quit Big Brother so that I could have booby milk? Like,
and it was funny because I remember people were giving her grief the next day because she was on the talk. And she was saying, I gave my baby all the milk he wanted. I'm like, everybody was like, oh, so you had the milk.
Oh, so you had milk then. Number one. Number two, I hope to hell you're talking about breastfeeding your child on daytime television.
I was like, oh my God, like let the woman live. Like just let her go. Just let her go.
God.
You know what? And speaking of that, let's see if we just let her go from this bracket or not. Got to find an opponent for Keisha. Words are hard, and she's going to be up against Sarah Beth.
It was almost Ryan Lochte again.
It was almost Ryan Lochte again. Who else was nearby? Caitlin Herman, Ramses from BB19. Some good matchups for anybody that got pulled here. But Sarah Beth is the one with the lucky draw.
Yeah, Sarah Beth. Fuck Sarah Beth. And I said that shit. All right. Yes. Sarah Beth had difficulty having her voice heard early on. She made a close connection with Kyland, with the possibility of throwing the entire game off balance for the cookout as she won the HOH comp in day 44. Kyland was able to get in her ear and convinced her to backdoor Derek X for being a comp threat and getting revenge on Derek when he nominated her a couple of weeks prior. This proved to be her undoing as when Derek X's allies won all of the comps the following week. Sarah Beth was targeted for eviction by Tiffany and Claire. Unable to win the POV comp, Sarah Beth became more emotionally distraught after realizing that she had no chance of staying. She was evicted by a vote of 5-1.
Well, congratulations to Sarah Beth on a very great goal for herself here. But look, you think of BB23, you don't think of Sarah Beth unless you're thinking about Sorry.
just
You
kidding.
think about Beth, but not Sarah Beth. Unless you're thinking about what exactly what Amon said.
Well, you know what? I'd like to
FSBAISTS.
contest that because
TS.
I remember going through Big Brother 23 thinking that she knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And I was wrong, but the way that she was playing and the people that she was trying to go after, I was like, she sees something going on. And you know what? I'm still kind of inclined to believe that she did. And she just doesn't want to admit it. And that's fine. You do you. I could still be wrong, but just the way in which she would talk to Kylan, the way she would push back up against him in the initial, you know, time during her HOH, I was like, and I think Tiffany felt the same way because Tiffany had such a hard on for her, like for weeks. I was like, I think Tiffany knew that if there was anybody that was going to figure out what's going on, it was going to be her. And I also think obviously there was like a little bit of the thing with Kylan going on there too.
Well, yeah, but then I mean, she wins HOH, and Kylan has her full ear to do a move that doesn't actually benefit her a whole lot in the game.
Yes.
So some of those concerns not as valid in action as they were in concern, but she certainly had a brain in there. She was certainly someone who you like. I understand why Tiffany felt the way that she did. I also can't look at Sarah Beth's picture anymore without thinking of the Squid Game doll. Whoever pointed that out when,
but also like a little.
wrong.
It's like if the Squid Game doll and Megan, because of like the dress is not the overall kind of thing, but there's just like the shortness and like the shape of it. And I feel like I'm on the Drag Race podcast, but there's just something about that I just expect her to kind of like start dancing and doing the Megan dance.
Looks like a Glee cast dress.
Actually,
perform at regionals.
She absolutely should have been on Glee. Like, this is a Glee character in front of us. You're 1,000% correct. And her name also would have been Sarah Beth on that show. Yeah. Just saying. But I also tend to think that having the teams twist in the, that was interesting in like when I think about the Sarah Beths of that game, because that first episode, like that, when they're all moving in and they're kind of playing, they're all getting assigned to what was it, like kings and queens and whatever. I remember thinking, oh, she has this like kind of girl next door, sweet kind of demeanor. Like people are going to really go after that. But I actually feel like this was not the cast that wanted to play with that energy. They wanted to play with people who were really gaming. And then you have people like Tiffany who, because they're gaming hard and thinking through things, they're going to assume things about your game that may not even be true because they have to assume that people are playing at the level they are, right? And I feel like, Amon, what you're saying is exactly how I felt. I thought Sarah Beth was aware of what was going on the entire time, but just didn't want to come out and come across as like potentially being labeled as a racist or something online, when for her it was purely gameplay. Like I didn't watch her thinking that she had any kind of hatred in her heart for the people of different races. But that said, I feel like if you're in the game, you're a Tiffany, you're an Xavier who's had multiple arguments now with Sarah Beth, and and she had nominated him with the hope that he was going to go, right? Like I just feel like she was playing with factors, if she knew about them at the time, that she didn't know how to handle. And then on the other side of things, if she wasn't aware of them, then girl, you are so socially blind. And I felt like that about so many, like Claire, I felt like that much more with than Sarah Beth in so many instances, about like not understanding like who was actually aligned because she felt so safe.
But didn't her and Derek X joke about it one time in the kitchen together? They were like, something's going on.
Something's going on. Or like, and then who was it? Wasn't it somebody who? Who was it? Somebody said, "Oh, I guess we're next" or something like that, and that was later. Alyssa, thank you.
Alyssa, she was like,
no, but that's when there's nobody left, and she's like,
that's nobody left.
She's like, so crazy. Like, it's
like, girl, come on now, girl. You got like, girl.
So I want to believe that she was more aware than maybe she was expressing, or that made the edit for confessionals and that kind of thing. And so I want to give her a little bit of props for understanding house dynamics, because clearly that is not a skill that a lot of people have in this game. That said, she trusted the wrong people. And like you said, Kylan was in her ear for Kylan's game and not for her own. And I just feel like she didn't know how to navigate that. And fair enough. But at the same time, I don't know. For somebody who had a fraction of my name, and this was right after, was this BB Can 9 or 10? Yeah, but they had the Beth on it. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I need to have a Beth that doesn't have such a negative reaction to this right now on the show. And then I was given Sarah Beth.
You got Sarah Beth, yeah.
And
sweet Sarah Beth.
So that's great. But
I think one thing I did enjoy about Sarah is that she was sort of like, she had some awareness to her. I thought that wanting to target Hannah and trying to convince her team to do so when they were still playing in teams was so spot on. She clocked it immediately. She knew, she was like, Hannah is playing the same game that I am attempting to play. She has to go. And I think that is the mark of someone who understands the game on a deeper level than I think that other people do, because I don't think that often people see that kind of stuff going on. They just assume that they're the only one that thinks about the game the way that they do. And that to me is like a sign of respect. It was like, Hannah, no, gotta go. So I enjoyed that about her. But I think, much like the Brigade season, it's just one of those things, and the Pretty Boy season is one of those things where it's kind of hard. You gotta move. You have to take your shots early, but sometimes it's just way too late to do that. You just don't see it coming, and before you know, you gone.
So, Kylan did everything he could to try to save her in the end. He was doing everything he could to save her for weeks. And it, eventually had to run out. Everybody had to lose their person, and that was his. But she was a very effective tool for him in the game. And, I think by working with him, I think that did give her a decent amount of agency, given the position that she was in, that she was never going to get as far as, of course, she would have liked to. So I agree. I think there's enough here that this is a good enough poll. If she is indeed going on to the next round past Keisha Knight Pulliam, it's a tough call. Beth?
I'm really, somebody who becomes emotionally distraught at the end of her game and can read the house a little bit and had the read on that, or somebody who's, breast milk depleted. It is, how do you make a decision? No, I'm going to obviously vote for Sarah Beth here.
All right. Amon?
Yeah. Fuck Keisha Knight. And I said, no, I'm kidding.
Oh my God.
I'm kidding. I could never say fuck you to Rudy Huxtable.
Can you imagine? Put that shit, make that viral. Amon Adwin.
Send it her way. Tell her there's still a Big Brother podcast out there talking about you, Keisha, and this is what they're saying.
We love you, Keisha. I would never talk shit about you.
It's all the same shit you heard.
You are on one of the most iconic television shows in Black History. Happy Black History Month, y'all.
Big Brother? No, just kidding.
But you gotta go, sis. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I hope that baby was well fed and that he has grown up to be, because when we was like 7 years ago, he should be 7 years old now. I hope he is the strongest 7-year-old out there. Okay.
We'll make this a 3-0 vote for Sarah Beth to go through and Keisha, unfortunately, to get evicted. My question is, just like I'm having a zooming out moment about this podcast here, not this specific episode, but like the podcast we do. When is the last time, and when will be the next time that Keisha was mentioned on a Big Brother podcast? Like when is she coming up? And I'll say the same for like Josh, just like some of these players that the whole point of this, if we're going back and just talking about everybody, I'm like, I just really want to know, and just in natural conversation, the next time that like a Josh or Keisha comes up.
I mean, I will say that Keisha probably has more of a capacity to be coming up in conversations by the sole fact that she was in the first celebrity season. She was in the season where everybody wanted to quit. She quit. And so
she was the first one to quit, right?
She was the first one to quit. And so I just feel like anytime that there is another celebrity season, her name will probably she'll probably come up somehow.
But so we think that could be 2026, right? If there's a world that they do with the next Olympics. So okay, maybe year that you'll all have to go without hearing about Keisha on a podcast, unless you all make a Big Brother podcast to talk about Keisha, which I would listen to.
I think that somebody out there, and I hope this inspires them, creates a podcast to specifically only talk about second boots from all the franchises.
That
In
could
which
be a
case,
thing.
there you go. You got
Yeah.
Keisha and Josh. Two birds, one stone.
Yeah, there you go. And shout out to friends of the channel, Ethan Amal and Peridium. I'm pretty sure that both of them have done videos on the quitters of Big Brother. I'm fairly certain, so I'm sure she's probably come up in those as well. So
okay. Got to check those out always. So let's recap what we did today in the most recent matchup. We sent Sarah Beth through to the next round, Big Brother 23's own, evicting Keisha from Big Brother Celebrity Season 1 as she evicted herself. We did the same here today. We also said goodbye to Big Brother Canada 9's Josh, who lost a matchup to one of the people who was a thorn in his side in getting him out of his very own season. Rohan advances to the next round. And the first matchup about an hour ago was Mackenzie, Big Brother 26 runner-up, advancing to the next round of the Diary Room in favor of Mimi. Nicole from Big Brother 25 has been evicted. Again, don't think she's going to do horrible, or she's going to do well in the losers bracket, but maybe she's a name that gets a couple of votes to be voted back in this battle back round at the moment. There's one more episode to go in the round, but not a lot of names that like super stand out, but we'll talk about that next episode. Beth, anything else from today's discussion or anything at all?
No, I actually, the one thing I was thinking about is I don't think Rohan voted in the Josh eviction, right? So I don't think he actually voted him out.
Ooh, I love a pop quiz. No, I don't.
Because he was on the block, right? Yeah.
Rohan was on the block.
He was on the block against
Josh.
Josh. So all I'm sitting there thinking is, it's how funny is it that Josh is not only so bothered by Rohan, but he's also sitting next to Rohan, who was nominated by Austin, right? Like his own alliance member. So just to show you just how dysfunctional the oddballs really were, even all the way back on the Josh vote. But I just thought that was a little interesting to bring up with our
the last time we had that I'm thinking of, which was again Lisa and Joseph. They never sat on the block next to each other. They might have been in the same season, but I wonder if we'll ever get a matchup of two people that sat on the block together. So great point.
It would be so cool if you also randomly, especially if they were against each other, but if you got both members of a showmance. Like what would happen if you had like a Shelley and Clay? You know what I mean?
Mackenzie got Matt.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like,
actually, I'm remembering not a
America.
showmance, but we also had the Tyler versus Enzo matchup, which is technically the same season. Could have been a showmance.
You're going to say technically a showmance.
I was like, what?
Okay.
I was like reaching deep in my brain.
Like, going back to the whole Rohan touching, this is also some
like,
clips I'm going to need to see.
Maybe we just stop this podcast.
Shut up and my.
We should create new narratives of the players that we saw. BB fan fiction. That could be a different
fan fiction.
We're going to train AI to write us a BB fan fiction season full with feeds and everything.
Yes.
That'd be great.
And by the way, also no patron votes today. We've I don't think we've had a patron vote in a couple episodes. I could be forgetting. But if you want to submit a vote for any player that you think needs your help in the bracket, you can do that over on Patreon, patreon.com/The Diary Room, and plenty of other things. As I have been mentioning a couple times, the losers bracket, and we have the battle back votes if you want to help somebody get back into the competition who does get eliminated. So check that all out there. But Beth, where can people find you online?
You can find me at AugustaWind11 on Instagram and on Twitch, or at Beth-Dixon on Blue Sky. And you can catch me on RHEP talking with Amon and Liliana about Drag Race every week, about season 17. And that's pretty much what I'm up to nowadays.
As of right now, we have just recently seen the second lever get pulled, to talk some Drag Race for a second. So, by the time that you're seeing this episode, people are getting eliminated. We would have to imagine, but
I hope so.
We'll see.
I can't wait for them to be like, just kidding, here's the Badonkadunk 2. And we're going to be like, oh.
Every couple of weeks is the new tank.
Yeah,
I mean, look, Michelle will happily go climb up that ladder again. She's getting the spotlight.
Yeah.
I know it's cold in there, though. They're always talking about how it's cold on the main stage, so I know she is freezing in that water.
You heard her when she that was a "this is effing cold" scream. That wasn't a "oh no, I fell" scream. Because I have to imagine she knew which levers, so she has to know. Okay, she's pulling. I'm going in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
By the way, I was listening to the podcast. I also thought it was 1, and it was
Yes.
1.
I came to
Just
that
had to think through it.
right when it happened, and I was
Yeah.
like, ugh.
I said it was either 1 or 10, but then 1 made more sense. Anyway.
10 would make sense too.
Mhm.
But
All right. So everybody check out everything that Beth has going on. Beth, thank you so much for joining us. Aman, your plug is similar to Beth's, but make it again.
Yes, you can follow me everywhere. I'm on Adwin. You can catch me and Liana and Beth on the Drag Race podcast, where yes, someone definitely will have been eliminated by the time you guys are hearing this.
God,
I
we
have
hope.
it on good authority.
Okay, good.
And that is it for me.
All right. Well, find me on the Free Agents podcast with Brian Scally, talking all things the challenge and the traders and anything else that comes up along the way. That's been always lots of fun. So check that out. Again, check out Patreon. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast here on YouTube if you're watching us. If you're not watching us, make sure you're subscribed in your podcast feed. Leave us some 5-star ratings and reviews. Leave a comment in the YouTube section. Let us know what you thought of the matchups and anything else that you want to tell us along the way. But I think that's going to be it for now. Aman, take us home.
Our thanks to Beth once again for joining us in the diary room today. And until next time, guys, please go to the diary room.